I'm back in New York City. After speaking with Richard Rosario's alibi witnesses, I want to dive deeper into this case, starting with the original detectives. I want to know what they would make of what those folks in Florida told me.
The investigation into George Colazzo's murder was basically a group effort, as are most NYPD homicide investigations. But there's only one lead detective, and in this case, it was a guy named Gary Whitaker. He's retired now, but I spoke with him on the phone, and he said he didn't remember much about the case, and he did not want to do an interview with me about it.
But while lead detective Gary Whitaker arrested Rosario, he's not the one who took Rosario's statement. That was a different detective named Erwin Silverman. I'm on my way to Yonkers, New York on this gloomy, rainy day to speak with Erwin Silverman, who's retired now. Apparently his nickname is Silky, and he's agreed to see me. Silky, as he told me to call him, asked that we meet in his synagogue. He arrives wearing a wild t-shirt as we set up in the congregation room.
Got a big owl staring at me, it's gonna scare me.
Then I get right to it.
We're here to talk about the Richard Rosario case.
Correct.
How much of the case do you remember? What do you remember about it?
There's a lot I don't remember, and I was not really involved in that much of the case.
Silky was a cop with the NYPD for 41 years, most of that time as a detective in the Bronx. He tells me he played a minor role in the investigation, but an important one.
This is the statement that Richard Rosario gave the night he turned himself in.
Mm-hmm.
You took that statement from him?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that statement? When you read that statement, what do you make of it?
It's a denial statement. He claims he was not involved. He claimed he wasn't around at the time.
And then what do you do with that when it's done?
It's put into the file.
So when he gives you that statement of 13 alibi witnesses, is it your responsibility to follow up on it?
No, it's not.
Whose responsibility is that?
It's a responsibility of the lead detective, and I guess, and then eventually these reports go to the DA for prosecution. What was done or what should have done, I really don't recall that,
I show Silky clips of the alibi witnesses telling me no one ever came to speak with them.
Nobody. No one from NYPD called me just to confirm if what he was saying was true.
Now, did the cop testify?
2 out of the 13 testified.
2.
But no one spoke with all these other alibi witnesses. Do you
Well,
take any responsibility for saying to the lead detective, hey, by the way, I put something in the folder. The guy said he had 13 alibi witnesses. Did anybody call them?
I most likely did that. It says here, I took the statement. I may have said, I would suggest that you have all these people interviewed.
Would it be upsetting to you if they didn't do that?
Sure. Why not? With that information that I got that night, I would assume that those people would have been spoken to. If that didn't happen, I'd feel things were left out.
I also find another former detective who worked on the Rosario case, Charles Kruger. He was the one who showed that main eyewitness, Michael Sanchez, books of mugshots hours after the crime. He says he needs to refresh his memory, so I show him some police reports, including Richard Rosario's list of alibi witnesses.
We have people IDing him saying he definitely did the shooting. Then, it's irrelevant. He can say anything he wants. I mean, we have eyewitnesses.
I think a lot of people will be surprised about that. The onus is not on the detectives to investigate these claims that he gave that first night.
Well, we're out we have witnesses. Once someone picks him out, they pick him out.
That's how I know that he's innocent, because he is innocent. He was here.
I also show him clips of my interviews with the alibi witnesses.
And Richard was there in the house.
They seem credible. If he was in Florida, then he couldn't have done it, then he shouldn't be in prison.
What is someone to do, other than what he did, in terms of turning himself in and saying, this is where I was in a different state and here's the people to talk to? What else?
I don't know if he could have done anything else. I mean, apparently whoever his first attorney was did a lousy job.
So what about Rosario's trial attorney? He didn't want to discuss the case with me, even though Rosario asked him to. So I reach out to someone else who can help fill me in on the history of this case. His office is just a few blocks from NBC headquarters.
So I've been a lawyer for 30 years.
Chip Lowenson first met Rosario about 5 years after his conviction. A former classmate from Yale Law School asked Chip if he would represent Rosario on appeal for free. To Chip, it seemed like a slam dunk case.
I thought, once I read into the case, and I still think, clear-cut, obvious case that Richard Rosario did not get a fair trial because he didn't have effective assistance of counsel.
Basically, Chip believes Rosario got a raw deal. Here's why. Rosario had no money and was assigned a court-appointed attorney, a woman named Joyce Hartsfield. She had the case for about a year before she moved on for personal reasons. Rosario was then assigned a new attorney, a man named Stephen Kaiser. And Chip says both attorneys screwed up.
The trial lawyers who represented Richard just messed up. The first lawyer applied to the court to get expenses paid for a defense investigator to go to Florida. That petition was granted, and then she didn't do anything for a year.
So the court actually granted Rosario's attorney the money to send an investigator to Florida. But the screw-up comes in when Joyce Hartsfield hands the case over to Stephen Kaiser, the lawyer who would represent Rosario at trial.
The first lawyer told the new lawyer that the petition had been denied, even though in fact it had been granted.
Translation: no one fully investigated Rosario's alibi, not even his own defense attorney.
What it meant was that the alibi defense, which was a powerful alibi defense, not just from one person or one piece of evidence, but a puzzle that when you put it together, it's just an unmistakable picture that shows he was in Florida on the date of the murder. It was just a mix-up, a misunderstanding.
Yes, a mix-up, but I found them. I spoke with them on the phone.
Right.
I called them on the phone, and they told me their story before I went to Florida.
He could have done that too.
He could have done that.
Right, and he didn't.
I feel like I'm missing something.
You're not missing anything. It's a colossal injustice.
6 years after his conviction, Rosario won a rare legal victory, a new hearing before a judge. Chip represented him and called 7 alibi witnesses to testify, including the people I interviewed in Florida. But the judge wasn't swayed. He found that Rosario's additional alibi witnesses were questionable and not as persuasive as the 2 who testified at his trial and were discounted by the jury. And that in spite of the misunderstanding or mistake made by Rosario's attorneys, they both represented him with integrity in a thoroughly professional, competent, and dedicated fashion. Most of all, the judge wrote the people's case was strong, and Rosario's conviction was amply supported by the evidence. The motion was denied. Why didn't the judge believe the alibi witnesses?
It's inexplicable to me. I think it's awful, but I think the judge got it wrong.
I wanted to ask the judge about his decision, but he passed away many years ago. I leave Chip's office with a copy of everything he has on the case. And I soon discover more. There's all these names I've never heard of before. There's eyewitnesses who have never testified, including letters that Rosario wrote to his first attorney in 1996 from jail, where he was awaiting trial. I came back to New York from Florida because I was told they were looking for me. Being that I know I didn't commit the crime, I came back to justify my innocence. And look how long it's taking to get me out. I'm going crazy up in here, and I don't know how much longer I could take this. Listen, I need to go home. I'm tired of this. He wrote that in the months after his arrest, and it's the same exact story that he's been telling for nearly 20 years. I have a lot more work to do. My focus now is on the evidence that convicted Rosario, those 2 eyewitnesses. They convinced a lot of people he's guilty, police, the prosecutor, and 12 jurors. It's time to find them and see what they say. That's next on Conviction.